Hey guys, I'm going to do a quick demo on setting up your shot for doing a walk cycle. The first thing I like to do whenever I open a shot is to turn all my objects off and then select only curves. This way we can't select our background or the geometry of our character or anything in our environment, lights, anything like that, and accidentally set keys on them. First thing I'm going to do once I've opened my shot, I'm going to select all of my controls and I'm going to create a rig snapshot. I'll hit yes. What it's going to do is it's going to create a snapshot of my default pose. It's going to set up all of my mirroring functions, and it will also set up mirror selection. As an example, see that I can select this clavicle, and if I come down here to this button, click on it, now I've selected the opposite or mirror control. Again, it's not necessary to use Animbot, but I want to go over them for those of you who are as well. I will also cover how to animate this character without using the Animbot tools. Another thing you can do is it will mirror your poses. So as another example, I will go ahead and create a pose here with this particular paw, right? So say I wanted to mirror this to the other side, I can just select mirror right here, and now I have mirrored my pose. Say I was undoing everything, but that's not even necessary. If I want to go back to my default pose, I can come over here to this green button, select that, and here we go. So this whole tool set is really powerful, and we'll go over ways to use it as we move forward. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the piece of reference that I'm going to be using for this shot. I saved out on our sync sketch link several clips of different walk cycles from cats. Feel free to use sync sketch and grab those pieces of reference if that will help you in your process. Under week 2 references, you'll see I added a bunch of different cycles, and I've also added in here breakdowns of the poses that you should be looking to recreate in your first pass. Here you can see that I've gone ahead and delineated the poses that you're going to want to get. So when I'm referring to the contact and low extreme, passing position and stuff like that, we're really keying off the front legs. When I'm looking at a piece of reference is I'm finding these key important poses, I might end up adjusting the timing. One thing that's good from here is we can see that this walk cycle is generally a 29 frame walk cycle. Keep in mind that we want to keep the resolution relatively small so that we're still able to scrub and we have a nice light scene. Since I know that it's going to be 29 frames, so I am going to go ahead and change these to 1 and 29. 29. This will help to keep our shot nice and light. Next thing I'm going to do is come up here to View, Image Plane, Import Movie. Because I've already set my project directory, this is the current project here, so I can click on the source images folder. You can see that I've got all these MP4s, but they're grayed out, so it seems like you can't pick them. If that's the case for you, you want to change the type of file to all files. Open, it comes in, it's gigantic. It also seems to have this one black frame here. So I'm going to go over to my attribute editor tab. I'm going to change the offset by 1. So now it's starting here. The next thing I want to do with this is it's covering my character, so I'm going to push it back in depth on the attribute editor with the image plane selected. I'm going to scroll down to under placement. I'm going to adjust the depth to 400. The next thing I'm going to do to select on channel box, now I'm going to change the position on this. So I'm going to select size X and size Y at the same time. I'm going to bring my cursor into my window. I'm going to hit Shift and hold it down. And when I do that, I am adjusting the size, but you can see I don't really have a lot of control over it. You can come up here to this button at the top of your channel box, and by clicking it, it will adjust the sensitivity of the channels you are manipulating. So when it's a tiny slice of pie up here, again, I'm going to bring my cursor into my viewport window. I'm going to hit Shift, a middle mouse button. Now I'm changing the size. I'm going to save my scene. Quad cycle version 01. So let's create the contact pose here for the front legs. The first thing I always do is lower my entire character. Space. The next thing I'm going to want to do is we'll take our left leg, slide back here, and our front leg, and we will bring it forward to the point where it's just touched the ground. So now I've pulled the leg as far as it will go, but we can get a little bit longer gait here. So some of the ways that we can extend this gait, if we turn our character here to the side, one of the things we know of cats, if we look at our reference, we'll see that his front legs are very much in a line. They're very centered underneath the body. Let's go ahead and bring our legs in X. Other things that we know about this particular contact pose is we know that there will be some Y rotation in the hips. So I'm going to go ahead and add Y rotation by selecting this control and rotating it just a bit in Y so that chest is pointed towards our planted foot. When I do that, you'll see that I now have the ability to slide this planted foot a little bit further forward. And in our pose here, we can see that it actually is landing just a touch beyond its nose. What we can see is that his head is really kind of low. We can lower our head a bit using this control. Looking in the direction he's going, I'm going to go ahead and close the jaw. So let's see how much farther we can get this foot forward. I will use the clavicle. I'm going to slide the clavicle forward some because we know as it reaches forward, it's going to be its furthest point forward as well. The fire foot should be firmly behind the character. I'm going to bring it back. And I'm also going to extend how much I can bring it back by bringing the clavicle back just a little bit as well. And a touch of rotation down. We can see here on the back legs that what we have is pretty close to the passing position. So let's go ahead and do that. For that, I'm going to leave this foot where it is in a nice neutral position. I'm going to raise these hips just a little bit. I'm going to tuck them under just a tiny bit because this is the passing pose. This one, I'm going to raise this up. Check it from behind now. So that is really very kind of boring. So let's add some shape to this pose from behind so that it doesn't look like a stick. So to do that, I'm going to rotate this in X slightly. I'm going to take this control and I'm going to bring it in just a little bit. And then I want to bring that knee out. To do that, I'm going to use this control right here. And I'm going to rotate this knee out some. I'm adding some shape to this pose. So I'm going to swing the foot out just ever so slightly and add a little bit of Y rotation in there. And then also I want to drag the outer edge. And I think we can drag this over a little bit farther. And now we have a much more attractive pose. For this leg, let's go ahead and bring this in some. And then we'll take the knee out again to give it a much more naturalistic pose with some nice shape to it. Just creates a much nicer silhouette. The head from the front view, let's just look at it with the orthographic. See how the head has moved over and now it's not focused on moving straight forward. One of the things about a cat that we tend to see is that they are very focused on where they are going. So let's counter animate that just slightly by we will rotate it in Y so that the eyes are still pointing forward. Let's also get tail. Let me demonstrate selecting stuff over here. I can select all the controls of the tail by selecting this. I can also select the individual ones instead of having to click on screen. And so I can select multiple ones by selecting Shift. Rotate it that way. So now that I have the whole pose, select all the controls and save a key right here. Okay, so now that we have key here, we know that the same pose is going to be our match key here at frame 29. Go ahead and hit S now to save that key. And then I know that I wanted at frame 15 to create the opposite of this pose. So I'm going to go ahead and hit S here again. So I'm going to go to frame 15, and because I have set up rig snapshot, I'm just going to mirror the pose by selecting this button right here. Okay, so we want to create this passing pose now. So usually the first thing I'll do is I'll select all my controls And I'll go ahead and copy the pose at frame 1 to this next pose. I'm going to put my cursor down here on the timeline. I'm going to select my middle mouse button. I'm going to hold it down. I'm just going to drag it to frame 9. Then I'm going to let go of the middle mouse and I'm going to hit S. And it will, you can see here in the graph editor, it has copied the pose for all the controls I have selected. Another way to do that, and I'll do the same example here for the other side.